Hi, my name is Rojan. Thank you so much to all the researchers who attended today. This means a lot to our families. My question is to Billy. Given the rarity of the disease, how do you anticipate finding people to be enrolled in your clinical trial?
Thank you. Well, I'm here now. We're not enrolling yet. So we always want to get the word out to the community and also engage with the community. That's why we have the survey. And there's a lot of free text sections of the survey because as we're developing the protocol, we would like to hear from you and what's a meaningful endpoint if you were to participate, etc. And then we do have our genome and exome sequencing for high drops. As I said, we do have patients that have been identified with the fetal presentation, just first in the family diagnoses. But we're patient. We've been doing clinical trials in rare disease now since 2017 was our first clinical trial for alpha thalassemia major, where we were doing a intervention for a single gene disorder, also a rare condition. And then there's this trial effect. I'm sitting next to Vanessa from Ultragenics, and we've been working with, in our current clinical trial, we're enrolling for MPS 7, which is also a very rare disease. And we've had 13 now referrals, which I think the incidence of MPS 7 is not too different from GM1. And so there is this trial effect that the more you speak, the more you engage, the more providers know about the condition, the more when these cases are diagnosed, there's actionability from the provider perspective on knowing who to get them in touch with and what education is out there and available for them to engage in those families. So step by step, but we always recognize there's a challenge, but we can always try to meet them.
I have another question to Billy. So I have two questions actually. The first is, what is the earliest gestational age that you can do an intrauterine fetal intervention? And the second question is regarding intrauterine enzyme replacement therapy. So the enzymes usually need to be given repeatedly, so it's not a one-time treatment like the gene therapy. How often do you have to give the intrauterine enzyme replacement therapy?
So the access to the umbilical vein is really dependent on the size of the umbilical vein. Technically speaking, the earliest we can access the umbilical vein is 18 weeks gestation. It's rare that you would have a diagnosis so early, but there is for families in the room prenatal diagnosis that's available as early as 10 weeks, the chorionic villus sampling. And usually if you're looking for single gene variants that are known in your family, you'd have some expectations. And for some of you who've been waiting and had diagnostic testing, you're familiar, it takes about a month to get results. But it is potential that we would have a patient that would be eligible and a diagnosis confirmed and genotype and phenotype confirmed as early as 18 weeks. So that would be the earliest. With this study, the goal would be just one administration. However, with the lysosomal storage diseases, they are repeat interventions, which can be weekly or biweekly depending on the condition. There's a risk-benefit calculus that we do, so we did write it to intervene to administer enzyme every 2 to 4 weeks. And with this clinical trial that we're doing, we're taking a small amount of fetal blood at each intervention and measuring enzymes so we can look at the trough or like what is the enzyme that remains in circulation for that fetus. And sometimes we've used that to guide whether and if we should intervene at the plant every 2 weeks, or we've sometimes prolonged for some cases. So for the clinical trial, we've enrolled 6, and some have gotten as few as 3 treatments, some has gotten as many as 6, depending on when they were referred to us, other things like mom getting COVID and can't travel, and then also measuring those trough levels.
We have some
questions
questions in
chat.
from the chat, so I don't want to neglect those. This is for Dr. Hastings. I think it's a question about the Azafaro study. In your medical opinion, how would you compare function and efficacy of Azafaro's drug compared to miglustat and venglustat?
Well, I think we don't really know the answer to that yet. That's the purpose of this study, but it isn't a head-to-head study, which would be, I think, almost impossible to do. But I'm hopeful, honestly, that it will be just as good, if not more effective. I think as well, we probably know that many patients can't tolerate miglustat because of the GI side effects or also sometimes neurotoxicity. So we don't anticipate seeing that with the Azafaros drug. And also, it's administered once a day as opposed to 3 times. So I think there are a number of clinical and logistical benefits.
I'm hoping I know how to ask this question. It's for Dr. Tift, and I wanted clarification on one of the graphs. The beta-galactosidase graph with, I'm wondering if it's an average of each of the juvenile kids and an average of each of the late infantile kids that is graphed. So I'm not sure if we can pull it up, or if maybe I should just offline ask you my question later.